So the last time we met, we talked a little bit about wondering, the first stage of the research process. And now that we've done some work on research question refinement, it's time to start really talking about what is required for us to do during the investigate phase of the research process. So what is not okay, and this is really the most important thing, is we don't want common knowledge anymore. So all those encyclopedias, the overviews, the history.com, we kind of want to dump all that stuff. We're closing that chapter, we're moving on, and we're looking for something else instead. So common knowledge, I mean, this is an example for Cold War, and you'll notice that across the board, whether it be Wikipedia, Britannica, History.com, or PBS. And PBS can be a great source sometimes, but in this case, it was like basically teacher lesson plans, was not good. And you'll see it's pretty much the same information over and over again. So that's what common knowledge is. This is what we want to steer clear from going forward. So instead, what we're looking for is the column on the left. So unique facts, anecdotes, opinions, analysis, original ideas, new perspectives. What we cannot include is the reference work, overviews, encyclopedias, student work of any kind, lesson plans, timelines, profiles, that kind of stuff. So if we go back to that, I don't know if you remember, but in the first, when we were talking about wondering, we were looking at the first 15 results in Google for the Cold War. You can't, like, the first, second, third option are all out. Like, that's done. We're done with that. Those are all referenced. None of those are journal worthy. The fourth could include some primary source gems or not. Don't know. You'd have to take a look. Of the 4 news articles, only 1 is viable. Then if we look at the next series of information, facts and information sounds like an overview, so that's not journal worthy. Besides, you need a subscription. Movie preview, obviously out. Cold War oversimplified, that was when we were talking about, it was a ad promoting antivirus software that pushes way to the top of Google results. The next one is the Cold War explained in 15 minutes. We are past explaining in 15 minutes, so that's no good either. And then the last few, obviously, video game, movie out. And then museums generally provide very, very, very cursory little narratives. They're not known for their text content, but their exhibits might be great. So of those sources, there are only really 2 questionable and 1 seriously viable. So what you really want to focus on is, like, basically look at the image on the right. You know, you want primary sources, books, journals, magazines, newspapers, that kind of stuff. What we're looking for in terms of content is opinions, original ideas, perspectives, new angles, personal accounts, right? Statistical information, like unique facts, things that provide evidence for whatever the case it is that you're ultimately leaning towards making. All right, so if we go into ClassLink, you'll notice that we have several folders that are really great for this kind of work. We're going to start with cross-searching databases. So that's in the library folder, cross-searching databases. So the library folder is orange, cross-searching databases, right? In there, that will bring you to this portal where we literally, it's called cross-searching databases because what it's doing is it's literally taking those 60 databases in the right-hand column and you're cross-searching all of them through this one search, advanced search function or field. So you can see you have several rows. You can add rows. You can take rows out. You have a whole bunch of delimiters in the right-hand boxes. So you can see for the first one, I chose title. This is a search that we have several students who are working on, is looking at this one song and its impact on the protest movement. You'll notice that nowhere in there do we have the word impact. All right, so be very careful in your word choices, right? We have Fortunate Son, Fogarty, who's the singer. We don't even have his first name because we just want to see that last name. Protest, and 196 with an asterisk, which is pulling in all the 1960, 1961, 62, 63, 64, all the way up to 1969. Right? Same with protest, is protest or protests. So long as it starts with that root protest, it's going to pull up any word that goes along with it. Fortunate Son is in quotation marks because we want those words to stay side by side. You'll notice that on the right, the default is select a field, but we've changed that to title for Fortunate Son and abstract, which is another word for summary, for protest in 1960, whatever. All right, so when you find results, it's really important to not click on the title and to click on PDF full text or HTML full text or view record and Cengage Learning or whatever, but that's the row you're choosing from, not the first. My first choice and recommendation is PDF full text wherever it is possible. If you want individual databases, you can click on this link and we have a spreadsheet there with links to all of our databases. In Schoology, you do have a left navigation menu that gives you opposing viewpoints, U.S. history. Now, those are all part of the Gale in Context series, so you have to be really carefully look past the Gale in Context to where it says APO or U.S. And then we have ebooks in Mac and VIA, and at the bottom, that's a typo. At the bottom is Smithsonian Primary Resources, which can also have some great resources. What I like about those sources is there's kind of a source for everything that will move you through the entire research process. So if you look at it this way, this is kind of a mess, but basically you have different kinds of sources that meet your needs at different parts of the research process. This is probably an easier way to digest that information. The point being that you don't want reference or biography at this point. You want magazines, news, and academic journals, or even primary sources, maybe images, depending on what your topic is. It will feature only 3 in each classification, but if you click on where it says primary sources, it will open all the primary sources below. So that navigation menu, that menu of contents that you see highlighted there on the left, that's important. It also syncs beautifully with Google Drive. Just click the Google Drive button, it will send the document with the citation to Google Drive, which is pretty handy. So your checkpoint for Investigate is your works cited list. And so we have in ClassLink an entire folder of works cited list materials. EasyBib is officially off the table, like no, don't. And I'll tell you why. We had a student this semester, junior, second semester social studies, and she came to me with this source. And she provided me with this citation, and I just started cracking up. I was like, oh, right, EasyBib, right? So there's no way, this is a sharp kid who, if told to cite her source from scratch, would never have made half of these mistakes. I mean, this is an absolute disaster of a citation, and this is what EasyBib does. Absolute disaster of a citation. What it should look like instead, all of that's wrong. Like everything that's crossed out here is wrong. Everything. All bad. Needs to be replaced, fixed, whatever. So this is the correct citation. And that's my point, is if you just learn the 9 elements and put them in order, it's so much easier than having to correct all of that. That's ridiculous. So in this folder, you have formatting the video. You have the YouTube video that tells you how to format your page, also alphabetize and removing those spaces and all that stuff. So formatting your works cited list correctly. You have basically a description of what the 9 elements are. So 1 slide per element. And then you have the sample citations document, which I'll show you briefly, and then you have kind of a sample citations explained. So let's walk through a couple of those things. Oh, and at the bottom, capitalize my title. Personally, I'm terrible at capitalizing titles because, yes, you're supposed to capitalize the first letter of every word except, and then the except list is pretty long and I mess it up all the time. So I just copy my title, drop it into capitalize my title under the MLA tab, and they fix it for me. Then I highlight the whole thing again, copy and paste it back into my document. And then it's done, and it's done right. And they don't make any mistakes, period. No mistakes. Good algorithm. Love that. All right, so when I said the MLA 9 elements, this is what that slide deck looks like. So I'm just going to show you a few slides, but you can see, one of the questions we get all the time is, okay, what if I have more than one author? Well, this is answered here, right? Or what is the title? So if you want to talk about, what your title looks like, how is it a part of a whole? Unless you don't have a part and you're just doing the whole, so that would be the book at the bottom. You'll see that this is for container. It talks about what kinds of things can be a container, what happens when you have 2 containers. And I just skipped straight to publisher because 4, 5, and 6 we don't have that many times, but it's important to note that publisher, and it has the basic rules about publisher, when to include it, when not to include it, and you have a few examples. And then date of publication. Now, one of the challenges with date of publication is that it can be really hard to figure out which month to abbreviate. So it literally links to an example of how to abbreviate months for every month there is, which helps a great deal. Location talks about making sure you leave out the http://, and this is what I was talking about. Here's an example of how to abbreviate every single month. The next slide deck, and this is where we talk about sample citations explained. We have a sample citation for each of these kinds of formats. And once you look at, this is taking a minute to load. Let's see if I can get it to load. There we go. So it shows you literally where on the website to look for the 9 elements, and then it gives you an example of what it looks like cited properly. And then right here you have it color-coded by MLA 9 elements. So the pink is the author, and the blue is the title, and the yellow is the container, etc., etc. Right? This one's going to be slow to load too, I can see. There we go. And this is what it looks like in the actual works cited list. All right. And then we have examples for, let's say, YouTube. And here's the color coded, and there it is in the citation. We have one from the Washington Times. There we go. A PDF document, that's the hardest thing, almost always is the hardest thing to cite. So literally you have to kind of look at your whole document. You have to kind of mess around with the URL and try to figure out what the source URL is. That can be really tricky business. And I think I pretty much stopped there. Yeah, I do. All right, so that is sort of your launching lesson onto how to use the investigate stage of your research process correctly. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to either me or Ms. Sheehan. Thank you.